Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode of Ripping the Fence, we're going to be breaking down everything we saw from Daytona. But before we hop into the video, I just want to quickly remind you guys to hit that like button and subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it if you guys did that. But let's go ahead and get started. Matthew, my friend and co-host, is joining me as always. And I actually have a little guest over here. Got the dog over here knocked out on the bed. So if the bed looks a little bit ruffled up, the dog's right there laying on it, so don't hate on me because the dog is right here. But anyways, Matthew is joining me as always, and we're recording this on Monday. Yes, Monday evening. Just because there was so much that happened from Daytona, we needed to all understand everything that happened. I listened to 1.5 NASCAR podcasts to get as much information as I could to talk about for this video. But Matthew, how are you doing before we go ahead and hop into things?
Well, we sure do have a lot to talk about. Of course, it's Daytona. Not just Daytona. It is the race that one race is the race that is close to the end of the regular season. So, of course, we got a lot to talk about. I'll be curious to hear what Jimmy's opinions are on some of these topics, which I think I know what some of his opinions are going to be, and I am ready for it. So, let's get right into it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and hop into things. We have a lot to talk about. So, for the race in general, it looked like the Fords are going to be tough to beat, which pretty much everybody expected coming into the race weekend. The front row cars literally sat on the front row for the race, and a bunch of other Fords qualified up in the top 10. I think it was like 8 of the top 10 were Fords or something like that. They dominated pretty much the whole race. They swept the stages. Josh Berry won the first stage, Joey Logano won the second stage. I want to quickly shout out Josh Berry because coming into this race, I did not expect him to be at the front of the field for pretty much the entire race until his accident. So, huge shout out to Josh Berry. I always thought of him, as kind of like a short track guy, maybe a little bit of an intermediate guy as well, never really a super speedway racer. And here he was shaking it up at the front of the field the whole night, making blocks, making moves, all kinds of stuff. So, shout out to Josh Berry. Just wanted to say that real quick. But yeah, the Fords, they swept both of the stages. And there was hard and aggressive racing pretty much all day, which was a shock. A lot of us expected this to be either a double file fuel saving race or a single file line fuel saving race, but it was really hard racing for pretty much most of the night. They went single file for a little bit, but not much. Um, and this might have to do with the stages, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe they shortened the stages, maybe they didn't. I don't know, but it seemed like the drivers were very eager to get to the front of the field before the end of at least stage one and stage two as well. But from the start of the race till the end of stage one, they were racing pretty hard pretty much the entire time. So very glad that it was hard racing, not fuel saving 90% of the time. But there was a moment in stage two, Daniel Suarez, he caught on fire. And we've seen cars catch on fire, but I don't think we've ever seen one catch on fire like this. So Suarez was about to leave his pit box, and a little bit of fuel splashed out of the car onto the ground, and Denny Hamlin was behind him, and Denny Hamlin went to try and get out of his pit box behind Suarez, and stopped because he couldn't get out, and he just kind of sat there, and some flames from Denny Hamlin's exhaust pipe lit the fuel on the ground on Suarez's pit box on fire, which ended up somehow trickling up to Suarez's car, and Suarez ends up leaving, and the fire somehow, I guess, creeps into the fuel cell or something. I don't know, but like that car came down pit road, it was ablaze, like really, really on fire. Like I don't think they had enough Coke Zero in the entire speedway to put the fire out for that thing. Like my gosh, that was a really big fire. Thankfully, Suarez was okay, and just a very weird situation on pit road there. Um, what else? In stage two, there was a crash. Uh, Once again, guess who caused it? Mr. Corey LaJoie. Once again, back at it again, causing crashes. So he's going down the backstretch, giving Noah Gragson a few bumps. The second bump, I believe, he hits Gragson, gets him a tiny bit loose and shoots Gragson to the left. And then LaJoie just decides to hit him again as Gragson is like trying to save the car and coming back up the track. Sends Gragson to the right. causes a huge crash on the backstretch, the first big one of the day. Catches a lot of playoff contenders in it, playoff and regular season. It knocked Chase Elliott out of the race, who was contending for the regular season championship. It damaged Ross Chastain's car, who is obviously trying to make it into the playoffs on points. Denny Hamlin was involved in it, and several other cars that I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was a very big crash, and it all started with Corey LaJoie once again. And oh my goodness, I don't want to go on a rant about Corey LaJoie, but like, I'll, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I'm not gonna rant about Corey LaJoie. Just, I hope he finds some kind of ride in the Xfinity or Truck Series next year, because like that's probably where he deserves to be next year in Xfinity or Truck Series. So hopefully he can find a ride there, because you know he has some talent and deserves to still race, but just not in the Cup Series in my opinion. But anyways, with that out of the way, there were two massive crashes actually before that. And also in the second stage, Eric Jones, he had a tire go down, and right at the same time as that happens, SVG blows up in a giant pillow of smoke down the backstretch, and it looked like colleague or Trackhouse, they were saying that it might have been from debris from Eric Jones's car that caused him to blow up, but I'm not 100% sure on why that happened. But both of those incidents happened at the same time. A rough finish there for SVG as he's trying to get a little bit more used to these Cup cars. As we might say a little bit more later in the video, he will be racing full time next year. But tough break for SVG there, just blowing an engine. And then in stage 3, there were two big crashes. The first one was going into turn 1. Austin Cindric, he gets into the back of Michael McDowell going into turn 1. He just bumped him wrong place, wrong time, sent McDowell around, caused McDowell to spin down the track in turn 1. Joe Logano kind of runs into him, and you could see the car start to fly up the racetrack, and we're like, oh boy, here we go again. Here comes another flip. But thankfully, the car ends up coming back down on all four wheels. It almost looks like the back of the car comes down on the wall, like the top wall, as well as he's like coming down. He lands on top of that and comes back down onto the racetrack. So thankfully, we didn't have a car flip there, and it looked like the fin that they added on the right side of the car did its job for that wreck. But there was another wreck right after that. Josh Berry, he gets spun after Austin Cindric gets bumped a few times. It was kind of like a chain reaction on the bottom. Christopher Bell bumped Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch bumped Austin Cindric. Got Cindric loose, came up, accidentally clips Josh Berry. He turns and starts sliding sideways down the backstretch. Next thing we know, the car just takes off like an airplane, flies into the air, lands on the roof, slides for a very long time on the backstretch, on the pavement, no grass, thank goodness. Then he's sliding, slams the inside wall upside down, and then once he bounces off the wall, he starts spinning like a top forever and ever and ever before finally coming to a stop on his roof. Thankfully, he was okay. They were able to flip the car over, and he was able to get out of the race car. No injuries there, thankfully. And yeah, like I said, like the first crash, everybody was like, okay, like that fin, it might have done its job. It looked like it did what it was supposed to do. It kept McDowell's car back on the ground. Then next thing we know, we see Josh Berry sliding down the backstretch, and basically just like Corey LaJoie, just flips right over on his roof. And I know we talked about this last week with Corey LaJoie flipping and all that stuff, and NASCAR, they're trying their best to make improvements, but I think NASCAR needs to keep figuring something out with these cars flipping, and I'm focused more on the single car flips, like LaJoie's and Berry's. With Michael McDowell, I could somewhat understand how that car might have flipped because he had a push from Joey Logano that was kind of helping him slide up the track like that and flip that way. But Josh Berry and Corey LaJoie, they were just sliding down the backstretch, and the car just lifts off the track like that. And we really haven't seen that many cars do that in previous generations. So I think NASCAR, they need to keep looking at things. A lot of people are saying it could be the underbody of the car with it being flat, how that's basically just kind of like a ramp for the air to just shoot the car up into the air. I'm not sure what it is, but I would like NASCAR to keep investigating, and I know they will. They're going to keep looking into things. I don't think they need to touch the package or the speed of the cars or anything like that. I think they could figure it out somehow with the aerodynamics of the race car, but hopefully they'll be able to do that. And Denny Hamlin, he on his podcast and on a few people's podcasts, like they're saying that flips aren't that bad. They're not hurting as bad. All that kind of stuff. And I completely understand that. Like in these two situations where Corey LaJoy and Josh Berry flipped, nobody got hurt. Like it was fine. The car landed, and huge props to NASCAR for the safety of the roll cage. They've come a long way with this next gen car in the safety of the roll cage and the three separate parts of the race car and the roof and all of that stuff. So props to them for doing that. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah, uh, like it's just a matter of time before one of these cars gets into the air and then goes into the catch fence. And we see an Austin Dillon happen. We see a Carl Edwards happen. We see all these different crashes where cars get lifted off the ground and go into the catch fence. And that's what I'm most concerned about with the cars getting into the air. Down the backstretch, whatever, it's fine. The car's landing on the backstretch, is sliding, not getting into the catch fence, that's fine. But I am worried about car getting into the air, hitting another car, flying into the catch fence, over the catch fence, who knows. So that is my main concern and worry about the cars getting into the air. Hopefully NASCAR can look into it. But yeah, that's all I have to say really about that. But those two crashes set up an overtime finish. And lo and behold, look who finds himself at the front of the field. Mr. Kyle Busch. He leads as we come into overtime. He restarts on the bottom. Harrison Burton starts on the outside of him. Christopher Bell starts behind Kyle Busch. And Parker Retzlaff in the 62 Beard Motorsports car restarts fourth behind Harrison Burton. And going into this restart, I'm like, Kyle Busch has this in the bag. He has Christopher Bell behind him. Yeah, Harrison Burton is a decent super speedway racer, but he has Parker Retzlaff behind him, who's making his first or second Cup Series start. I'm like, oh yeah, Kyle Busch, he got this in the bag. And after the first lap of overtime, it looked like that was the case. Kyle Busch was in the lead for most of that first lap. He got a pretty good push from Christopher Bell, and coming off the turn two on the backstretch on the final lap, Kyle Busch, I think, and Christopher Bell were clear of Harrison Burton on the top side, and then out of nowhere on the outside line, Parker Retzlaff gives Harrison Burton the push of his life down the backstretch. Going into turn three, Harrison Burton clears Kyle Busch, holds on to the lead through turns 3 and 4. Kyle Busch gets another run, coming off of 4 down the front stretch, tries to make a few moves to the outside, the inside, the outside. Harrison Burton throws some really good blocks, and Harrison Burton, he is able to hang on and win at Daytona. And if we thought Austin Dillon's win was an upset of the century, this one is even more so. But Harrison Burton ends up winning at Daytona, punching his ticket into the playoffs officially, unlike Austin Dillon, who won and is not eligible for the playoffs anymore. But Harrison Burton pulls off the upset, wins at Daytona. And before I talk about any of, the playoff format, him punching his ticket to the playoffs, any of that kind of stuff, I do want to give props to Harrison Burton because he did earn this win. He restarted on the front row late in the race and managed it well. He held off Kyle Busch, one of, if not the greatest NASCAR racers of all time, in a 2-lap shootout to the sprint at Daytona International Speedway, the birthplace of NASCAR. So, gotta give respect and props to Harrison Burton. A win is a win. It doesn't matter where it is. He ends up getting the win. Wood Brothers' 100th win, by the way. So, huge milestone for them. So, huge congratulations to Harrison Burton. This win was not a fluke by any means. Doesn't really matter where he is in points. Daytona is always going to bring out those quote-unquote surprise winners. It doesn't matter what kind of format. Doesn't matter what series even. Daytona brings that out. So, huge props to him for getting the win. Let me quickly go over the results for you guys. They will be on the screen. And we have several names that are usually not in the top 10 here, including the winner, Harrison Burton. Cody Ware finishes 4th in the 15 car. We got Parker Retzlaff finishing 7th in the 62. Daniel Hemrick finishing 9th in the 31 car. Bubba Wallace 6th. Good run for him. He needed it as he's trying to get his way into the playoffs. So a lot of a lot of less popular names in the top 10 here at Daytona. But yeah, let me quickly talk about Harrison Burton one more time. So he does punch his ticket into the playoffs, and I'm not gonna rant about the playoff format because it is what it is. Like the playoff format's here to stay. It's entertaining. It is what it is. Uh, I was listening to the Teardown with Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi. Really love how they go back and forth over this kind of stuff all the time. Um, and I'm on, I forget whose side. I think I'm a little bit more on Jeff Gluck's side. I think that I like how the regular season is. Like the regular season, that proves that running consistent still matters. Because if you run consistent enough, you finish in the top 10 in the regular season, you get playoff points that carry over into the playoffs. And then the playoffs, it is what it is. It's entertaining. It's what NASCAR wants. That's here to stay. I wish they would tweak it a tiny bit on how it's just one race to decide the champion, but that's a whole other discussion for another day. But I like how NASCAR still rewards the regular season because that playoff battle, that's still close, and then the cut line for the actual playoffs, that's still close as well, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But Harrison Burton does punch his ticket, so we have a few races left. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens at that cut line. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But Matthew, go ahead and share your thoughts from everything we saw in Daytona. It was quite a lot of wrecks, upset winner, last lap pass, all kinds of stuff. So, Matthew, go ahead and share your thoughts with the people on what you saw from Daytona.
Whew, that's a lot right there. All right, where do I even begin? Well, as always, Daytona never misses. Especially ever since they moved Daytona towards the cutoff line, but this year is the second to last race of the regular season, but still, doesn't matter. It always delivers an absolute cinema race, basically. I mean, of course, going into this race, I thought it was going to be, fuel mileage, fuel saving, like the big topic was for the Daytona 500 or Talladega in the spring. Atlanta, not really, because it's his own thing, basically. But that wasn't the case. And I think a couple of factors were the first stage, especially, was short compared to the other stages. Having that first stage short pretty much made it clear for the drivers to be like, well, we don't really have to save here. We could just go all out here. And we saw a phenomenal first stage. And then the second stage, that's when I was expecting the fuel saving to happen, but I think the cautions and the third stage as well. I think the cautions came out pretty much at the perfect time when I felt like fuel saving was starting to happen, but the caution came out at the right time for various reasons, wrecks, engine failures. Um, so I think how the cautions that during the stages pretty much help that as well. So I'm glad we were just able to see, all out racing, none of that fuel saving crap. I mean, come on. We don't need to be traveling 140 miles per hour around Daytona just to save fuel, a little extra gallon of fuel. But, it's just these teams these days, they've become more smarter than ever. But on that note, I'll start with the winner, Harrison Burton. First and foremost, congratulations to him. And I'm so glad, Jimmy, we got his autograph at Richmond. You were a little hesitant to get his autograph, like, but like, hey, we gotta get as many autographs as possible. And we were able to get his autograph. And what do you know? Who knew that 2 weeks later after that he'll end up pulling off one of the biggest upsets in NASCAR history, basically. For the iconic Wood Brothers, went number 100 for the Wood Brothers. Pretty much one of the most historical teams in NASCAR history. I mean, I'm extremely happy for this kid. I'm extremely happy for this historical team. They both have been through a lot the past couple of years. I I have been critical of Harrison Burton in the past couple of years. I mean, the performance just hasn't been there, and I feel like that team is much better than what they are. But I mean, I'm still happy for Harrison Burton because he's been through a lot. the kid does have talent. I mean, he did win like 4 or 5 races with Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity series. So this kid does have talent, but unfortunately, he just hasn't really come together in the Cup Series until this Saturday night when he pretty much almost, almost made me faint basically because hey Jimmy, I texted you literally a few laps to go when Kyle was literally right there at the front. I'm like, I'm not going to say anything because knowing what has happened all season long, I'm not saying a word. And of course, to the final lap, he had Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell pushing. And I'm like, come on, this should be a breeze. And then out of nowhere, one of the biggest one the moment that almost made me fall on my knees watching my TV. Harrison Burton and Parker Resloff, who's making his second career Cub start, managed to outrun Kyle Busch and Christopher Bell. Those two were able to have the biggest run that those two can possibly make, considering the equipment that they're in. Like, I've never seen anything like it before. I don't think I've seen anything like this before. And I mean, am I surprised? Nope, because that's how Kyle Busch's season is gone. I, of course, that would happen. Of course, he could lose to Harrison Burton of all people. But um, but yeah. Anyway, besides that, um, congrats to Harrison Burton, like I said. And by the way, Lee Diffie in the booth this weekend, and he's going to be in the booth for the rest of the season in NASCAR. That is one of the best decisions that I think the NBC has ever made because he absolutely nailed it. His first race with NASCAR. Well, it's not his first race with NASCAR, but this year he absolutely nailed it. Especially that last lap. Talking about Jeff Byrne. His son winning, and you see Jeff Byrne. Celebrating in the booth. I mean, that's special stuff right there. And Lee Diffie absolutely nailed it this race. And hopefully, and I'm just so glad we're able to have him the rest of the season. And hopefully, in the future with the new TV deal, hopefully he stays with NBC since, well, IndyCar's going to Fox. So, I mean, Lee Diffie, amazing in the booth. And before I get to the crashes, for anyone that starts whining and crying about the playoff format again, let me, Jimmy, is it 2004? Is this 1995? What year is it, Jimmy? What year is it?
It's 2024,
Okay,
and
cool,
this format has been around
cool.
since
Yeah.
2014. So it's been around
So
for 10 plus
so
years.
we're talking about what happened Saturday night. We're not talking about the past anymore. Oh, if it was this format, we're not in the past anymore. This is the present day, 2024. This is the format we have now. Either either take it or you can get out of here because that's how it is. Um, and guess what? Harrison Burton in the playoff, whether you like it or not. And it is a big deal. I mean, we were talking about this with the whole Austin Dillon penalty and all this. Why they're fighting so hard for it? Because these teams, when they make the playoffs, that is millions of dollars right there you're earning by being in the playoffs. You saw the implications of Austin Dillon, taking away that playoff eligibility. That team had lost millions of dollars now from when they were locked in the playoffs after that win on Richmond. And now with Harrison Burton, he's literally from 34th in points to basically 13, 14th right now. As yeah, something like that. That is millions of dollars right there that they just gained from that. And that is huge for a team like the Wood Brothers. And that I mean that is great for them, especially since Josh Berry is going in that car next year, and I expect that team to run much better than they've been the past couple of years. With this win, that's going to really help this team. So that's why it's very important. You may say, oh, he's not going to be a factor. It's just going to be a clean sweep in the first round. It's a big deal to the team. Because, like I said, they're making millions of dollars. Their sponsors are getting more TV time now. So it is very important. There's a lot of money in stake when it comes to the playoffs. So that's why it's important. So I just want to get that out of the way. Now on to the two big crashes. First and foremost, glad to see Michael McDowell and Josh Berry get out of the cars okay. Um, okay, everyone is all of a sudden becoming very soft here about flips now. Like all of a sudden, we're overreacting here. Like everyone's like, "Oh no, we need to do something. That's so unacceptable." Are we forgetting that flips have been a part of NASCAR for like for decades and decades and decades on, and it does not matter the generation of car. We've seen flips in the Gen 6 car, even with different, super speedway packages. We've seen flips in the car tomorrow with the wing or spoiler. We've seen flips in the iconic Gen 4 car. I mean, and it goes on and on and on back. Flips are always going to be it's always going to happen in NASCAR race. It doesn't matter the car. We saw Xfinity in Michigan with restrictor plates, with Kyle C literally blowing over. I mean, it's going to happen. And all of a sudden, just because we've had a couple flips the past 2 weeks here, we're going to start overreacting here and acting like this is unacceptable here. Um, like I said last week with the Coil of Joy thing, it was a big gust of wind that week, that race, which pretty much helped hit that car up off the ground. Um, and that's really a big deal when you're at a track you're going 200 plus miles per hour. And same thing with Daytona. I mean, you're at a track you're going 190 plus, and you turn at a certain angle, and you're getting help from a certain car, and you're going to go over. So, like I said, glad everyone's okay. Um, of course, NASCAR is taking the four car to the R&D center. Good for them. I mean, it's cool, but like I said, I don't think there's anything you can do. I've been saying this the past 2 weeks now after what happened in Michigan, and also said about Ryan Preece last year at Daytona. You cannot beat physics. You can't beat physics. You just can't. It's, things like this are going to happen, and it just coincidentally, back-to-back races are big high-speed ovals here, where you get to a certain speed and you spin around, the car might fly. So these drivers know the risk. It's a dangerous sport. We got we got to remember this is a dangerous sport, and there's always going to be risk. And we have had such an amazing safety record here the past 20 plus years. It's amazing the technology we have now. I mean, these new cars now are safer than ever. Look at the roof on Josh Berry's car. Besides like scraping of the decal, you couldn't even tell that car went over. I mean, the roof is basically bulletproof on these cars. It's amazing. If that was the old car, the roof would be absolutely crushed. I mean, just look at Joey Logano's car the last year of the Gen 6 car at Talladega. That roof was crushed. Ryan Newman, 2020, crushed. These roof of these cars now are like bulletproof now, and it just shows the amazing engineering of the safety of these cars. So we've come a long way. Of course, we're gonna make this sport safer, but we gotta realize it's still a dangerous sport. It's always gonna be dangerous. We can't, start overreacting, and we gotta make the cars go 150 now so they won't blow over. You can't do that. So that's just my opinion. It may sound harsh to some people, but I mean that's NASCAR. That's motorsports. It's a dangerous sport. There's always gonna be risks. There's always gonna be moments where cars go over. That's just the way it is. I mean, we're not going to see a Darlington, that's for sure. Um, okay, this video is getting kind of long, so I'll move on. Congrats to Harrison Burton. Um, Amazing upset. And yeah, fantastic race overall.
All right, let's quickly go over the regular season and playoff standings as always. So for the regular season, Tyler Reddick goes up 17 over Kyle Larson. Chase Elliott drops to minus 18 after he was involved in one of those wrecks. Reddick was also involved in that wreck, and I think Larson was too. So kind of a good thing that Reddick was involved in that wreck, or he would be way ahead of Larson and Elliott here. Hamlin, he goes from third in the regular season last week, but after his penalty, he drops to eighth, and he is now way out of contention. He went from minus 28 to minus 111 with his 75-point penalty. And then the playoff cut line with Harrison Burton winning, that keeps Truex and Gibbs in. Buescher, he increases his lead by 5 points to plus 21. And now Chastain and Wallace. Last week, Chastain was plus 1 over Bubba Wallace. Now both of them are out of the playoffs. Wallace is minus 21. Chastain is minus 27. So it's possible for Bubba or Chastain to point their way in, but I think they're going to need some help from Chris Buescher. They're going to need him to not run well. But they are going into the Southern 500, which is arguably the toughest race of the year. Physically, mentally, on the race cars, we've seen all kind of carnage happen in the Southern 500, with it being the first race of the playoffs for several years. So a lot could happen. Buescher could have a problem that could allow Bubba or Chastain to get back in it. If they finish top 5 in the stages, get some extra points, could help them out. So it is definitely not over. And then rating the race and paint scheme of the race. Rating the race, I think I gotta give this one a 10 out of 10. It had pretty much everything we needed for a good race. Competitive racing the whole time, only a tiny bit of single file fuel saving, some crashes. Thankfully, everybody was okay in those crashes. We had a green flag finish to a super speedway race for once. It seems like we always have a caution on the final lap that ends up ruining the end of the race. So we had a green flag finish, a last lap pass, a new winner, all kinds of stuff. Pretty much everything we need. So I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. Then my paint scheme of the race is going to be Brad Keselowski's King's Hawaiian Pretzel Bites car. I really like the little twist they put on the normal King's Hawaiian car with the orange and the blue and the pretzel bites sprinkled on there and all that stuff. So that is my paint scheme of the race. Matthew, what is your paint scheme of the race and rating of the race before we go ahead and finish this video up?
I'm going to give this race a 9 out of 10. I thought this was a fantastic race. Amazing racing. None of that fuel saving crap that's been happening in the past couple of super speedways. I thought it was just a little too chaotic towards the end, but not a big deal to me. Of course, upset winner, so 9 out of 10. And then my paint scheme race is gonna be Daniel Suarez's Coke Zero Sugar car. Man, they nailed this paint scheme. And no offense, Jimmy, this is better than Elliott's Coca-Cola paint scheme. I'm sorry, because they made the numbers chrome, which is just makes this paint scheme even better. So this is my paint scheme of the race.
Alright, I think we're going to go ahead and finish the video here, Matthew, unless you have anything quick you want to say, you can interrupt me, but I think we're going to end it here. This video has gotten a little bit long, approaching 35 minutes, so sorry this video was a little bit long, but we had a lot to talk about from Daytona. Playoff implications, crashes, everything we just mentioned in our rating of the race. So sorry it was a little bit long, but thank you for sticking with us. We greatly appreciate it. We'll have to update you guys with some news and stuff in the next video, but next week is the final race of the regular season. The 16 drivers will be set for the playoffs. Next week after our Darlington video, we might do a little review of our playoff predictions and all that kind of stuff. I know both our brackets are already busted by now, but yeah, it's going to be a fun week up ahead determining the playoffs for the NASCAR Cup Series. But thank you guys for watching this video. We will catch you guys in the next one.